Hello, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Coley, awards editor at Rotten Tomatoes, and it is my honor to moderate this conversation with the incredible cast of challengers. So, Mike, Josh, and Zendaya, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with you, Miss Zendaya, because one thing I actually learned from our previous conversation is if I try to get you to brag on yourself and talk to you about your process, you're just going to be humble and talk about your co-stars. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
What to you was the scene that you most enjoyed watching, either art, between Josh and Mike? Which scene did you really enjoy watching between their dynamic as far as their performance?
Oh, my favorite thing to do, embarrass them. No, honestly, I think one of my favorite parts about the process of doing this was like the opportunity to have like a rehearsal period. And that was so much fun for me because I feel like often you don't really get that time with, your castmates, and it really is just the three of us to just kind of like talk through scenes, try things, what works, what doesn't work, ask each other questions. And to me, it was one of those things where you kind of build an idea of these characters in your head, and you're reading them as you go, and you're picturing what it's going to be like. And I think watching them come in and then seeing like their chemistry and how naturally they flowed with each other, and the choices that they made that I wouldn't have even been able to guess. And I think that, to me, like watching the characters come to life and how easily they just kind of like slotted into it, because I think in many ways they're nothing like their characters. So I was like, oh, like who is this? This creature that you just like kind of like slid right into. So um yeah, I really enjoyed it, and watching them work and watching them play. And it makes you I don't know, makes you go, okay, this is what we're doing. All right, let me try to get in here, and I guess we keep saying the tennis match thing, but like it really felt in many ways like that. But I think one of my favorite scenes or days that I went to go watch them work together was probably the infamous churro scene. Um and I don't know. I watched them walk through it, rehearse it, with Luca, and then, I mean, it was like, I don't know. I feel like you guys didn't even do many takes of that. It was just like done. They got it.
Well, that brings me to my next question. I'll start with you, Josh, since you were definitely, I think, trying to bully that conversation and a lot of that movement in that. Set up the churro day, because that has also been a scene that has had its day on the internet. Like the churro has definitely, I think, become something that a lot of people are kind of obsessed with that scene as far as how it tells the story of your character in art. You know what I mean? Like how like Patrick and Art and sort of their closeness really and playfulness.
Yeah, I think Z, first of all, I think Z might be right, although I will preface the fact that like I think almost every scene in the movie was like no more than one or two takes. It was kind of Luca works very quickly. Um, but the churro scene, I mean, I sort of struggle sometimes to remember half of what we shot at any time. But I do remember that day because what's also it's worth saying that like Z, obviously Z's a producer on this movie, and it was such because it's such a small contain in many ways a small and contained film. There's three of us leading that movie, and although it feels big because of the drama involved and the emotions and the feelings that are flying about, it's the three of us. And because Z was a producer, it was like if she wasn't in, she was still in. She was with us the whole way through. So it very much felt like three of us went on this journey. And churros, yeah, I mean, I guess again, as Z has alluded to, us three are the worst people to know what's kicked off on the internet in the
I
last
know. Yeah.
year or so. But churros, I don't think I'd ever had a churro before that day, and I'd heard a lot of buzz about it. But it was absolutely delicious, and and, um, and I just remember Luca having this. I mean, Luca had this idea quite early on about, Patrick wants to take, and he wants his churro and he wants Art's churro. And I think that's those little dynamics, those little games you can play within a scene, helps tell the story, but also it helps round off your character. And so even though they might feel kind of improvised in the moment, they come from lots of conversations with Luca, with Zendaya, with Mike, about who your character is and how that dynamic would work. And so I can't remember if it's in the scene, Mike, but in fact I think it is, but as we left that scene, as the exit from that scene, Mike like tripped me up, and that was just like an in the moment thing. But again, it's like we knew those characters so well that like of course Art would trip up Patrick, and that there's this like constant trying to get each other one-upsmanship amongst each other. So so that spontaneity isn't wholly spontaneous. It's like it's also founded in conversation that's been going on, and as Z said, through rehearsal.
I will add, there is a funny bit that I laugh at every time, but I feel like maybe people don't notice it. But like when Patrick or when Josh is walking in the beginning and they're having their conversation and you just like throw your trash.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh every time. It's like Patrick is just like so entitled. I don't even have to throw my food away. Like I don't have to use a trash can and someone will pick it up. And it's just such a great little thing. And yeah, I love that little bit.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I love that you say that, because I was just going to say to Mike, is there's a lot of little moments that all of your characters get that I think tell a deeper truth about who they are. I actually think of the moment towards the end when Patrick is looking at the woman's breakfast sandwich and like is actually going to take it. Like, I'm like, this is who you are. I would die of the embarrassment that I even looked at this woman's sandwich, let alone had the audacity to eat it. And I was going to ask you, Mike, if you have a little moment that you felt was really illustrative of who Art is, that maybe the audience, and again, those internal motivations that are not maybe in the dialogue, but tell a lot about who he is as a person and maybe what motivates him in this story.
Yeah, that's a very good question. There is one moment that jumps out to me in particular. And again, piggybacking off what Josh said, it is these conversations that we were very fortunate to have with Luca and each other all throughout that rehearsal process. And one of the things that was discussed about Art was this idea, Patrick's character is much more, I think, brazen, much more relaxed, much more calm about life in general. And Art's character is maybe a little bit more controlled, particular, very neat, very organized, trying to really make sure that things are correct. And within that, there's this scene at the party, and we're watching Tashi dance on the dance floor. And then we have a conversation with her, and she leaves, and we decide to stay and wait for her. And so Patrick and Art are just sitting on the couch, and there's this dessert that was presented to us, and it was like some sort of cake, and it had an icing on top of it, and there was strawberries on top of the cake. And I remember thinking, Art would love to eat the cake. He probably won't eat the cake. That's not the right thing to do. So I guess he'll have the strawberry, but the strawberry has icing on it. So he has to scrape the icing off of the strawberry while he's eating. And I remember doing that. And that felt as if that probably was the correct choice. And I think it's in the movie. I don't know if it made the movie or it is.
It is, yeah.
It felt right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And it felt very indicative as to who this person was in terms of, the decision to eat the cake or not eat the cake is its own thing, and the consequences of that. And then, well, I guess yes,
you can't loosen up. You can't.
You
can't cheat.
No, he can't loosen up until Tashi makes him. But we're going to get to that. We are going to get to that. Josh, sir, I want to bring it to you a little bit with Patrick. Again, I'm going to talk about this particular one because the last time I talked to you was before the movie came out and I couldn't really dive in. Now it's out. People have seen it. It's on MGM Plus. It's made, you know what I mean? It's done what it needs to do. I'm curious for you, the alley scene. I feel that scene with you and Z is just, it's one of my favorites in the whole movie, but particularly because I know for you, his brazenness was something that you sort of struggled with. And that scene is a perfect example. I mean, she literally slaps you and he's just like, what? This is like the most logical thing on the face of the earth. I'm curious for you, was that the most difficult bit of Patrick bravado, or which was the part that you really had to sort of find to sort of live in that moment? And what did you do to sort of inhabit it? Because you said that it was difficult for you to be as brazen as he was as a character. And did you use any sort of other performances or moments that helped you sort of like build that in? Because he is believably the audacious jerk that he is when it's on screen.
I think, yeah, I think it's, I think sometimes you, again, I think sometimes that happens through your co-stars who you're working with and the dynamic that those characters present. So, so with Art, you know, it's like he has to be, he takes that role because Art isn't going to take that role. Mm. And like when it comes to Tashi's like, he loves the battle. I mean, it's like, you know, to bring it back to tennis, all three of them love the battle. That's what they're, in my eyes, that's what they're fighting for. They're fighting for that kind of whip smart, like, dynamic that the three of them have together. And so, yeah, I agree that the moment at the wall is like, it's one example of like his brazenness. And I think by that stage, because we shot that quite late on, I think that was like, that maybe that dynamic was in my bones a little bit. I remember finding it really mean having to do the scene at the hotel bar when I'm on a date with a girl, and having to do that scene and also not concentrate on the girl I'm with and be staring at Tashi and feeling like this feels so brazen. And particularly at the end of, you know, I go over and have this conversation with Tashi, and then when I leave, I forget about the girl that I'm on the date with. And coming back then to kind of continue that conversation just by kissing her, that felt like a sort of outrageous thing that I couldn't believe anyone would do, and yet it felt right for Patrick. But truthfully, I really think it's like it comes down to a dynamic between the other actors, and you take on roles, and Patrick is only able to be so brazen because Mike is playing Art in his way and has got his character down, and because Z is playing Tashi in her way. And so, you know, those dynamics, those characters come through in rehearsal, and then, you know, plus, and then you add into the mix that, you know, Luca would sometimes very physically tell me to kind of like, you know, lead with my chest, and which I as you can see, definitely don't do normally. And so those things help, you know, just being told to kind of hold yourself right and be strong and that sort of thing.
Zendaya, ma'am, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the journey of Tashi's hair and clothing throughout this, because there's been a lot already written and talked about her sort of like journey as a woman being told with her hair, from like the bob to the free flowing to the ponytail. And then in addition to that, her clothes. I mean, in one scene when she's meeting Patrick, she's wearing Art's shirt. And then in another scene earlier, she's wearing a shirt that eventually moves around. And the same could be said for your character, Mike, but I'm curious how you and the costumers and Luca and the hair and makeup folks sort of mapped that out, and what story you were maybe trying to tell with her physical presentation.
I think Jonathan talks about it probably better than I am, but I think he did this beautiful thing that feels very American, of branding, like, and how kind of brand focused we are, right? Like there's a lot of, and it's not like, at least from our standpoint, not like a sponsored thing, but it's like, you know, in the beginning, she's sponsored by Adidas, right? And so The look is quite clean, and you know, it's the early 2000s, so it's like the juicy couture and the press on nails and the, like, you know what I mean? It's whatever that is. But then there was a time where when she gets injured, that she doesn't have a brand deal anymore, right? So now it's like a mishmash of just like, you know, 5 different brands. She's just wearing what she has in her closet at this point. And then again, when she gets older, it's really refined. And now she's a woman, and it's like her presentation is constantly she's trying to present herself as a brand now, right? Like what she sees as wealth or success are being put together down to like the cream she uses, or what kind of slip she sleeps in, you know what I mean? It's all very organized, and I think that that kind of is reflected in her marriage too. Like he looks different, you know, now he's got these perfect crisp Uniqlo, you know, and I think that it seems like all of that is very strategic, and she feels very instrumental in that kind of thing. I mean, you can see the control and like, you know, her scratching out the, you know, the notes on this ad campaign. But I don't know, I think he just presented that in a way that didn't feel like we were being like when you're watching the movie, you don't feel like you're watching an advertisement, but it feels very much what we're used to, which is seeing this kind of this idea in our face a lot. And I think he really did that quite well. And then also I think he just emotionally understood all of the characters, and I really appreciated again the interlink of clothing, because I think they're always, you know what I mean, tangled up in each other in whatever way, and the messiness of like the shirt that he wears that night, then someone else wears, and then somehow it gets to another person and then they're wearing it, and it's just like constantly intertwined and connected. And you know, it's like the shirt that her husband goes to bed in is the shirt that she's wearing to, you know, go meet up with Patrick in the middle of the night. And I don't know, I just think that those, and I remember having that conversation about like, what does she go to meet him in? Because I mean, like, she's not a sweatpants kind of woman, right? So she's still gonna wear her what she's, you know, but she might just pop on his shirt and a little cashmere, a little cashmere sweater, you know? So I don't know, it was kind of fun to navigate through clothing, with what point these characters are in their life. And I think through hair as well. Because there was, you know, we had to span so much time. We go from them being, you know, 18-year-olds to, you know, grown people with families, and you know, in different, massively different parts of their life. It's like, how do we track that without, you know, it looking or getting confused? And so to me, I think young Tashi is like, obviously there's more color, it's more vibrant, it's I remember us having conversations about that dress that she wears to her event, and I think it was written as like a young girl who's trying to be sophisticated, but it obviously kind of feels very, you know, kind of youthful, and kind of like, I'm trying to like play this role or this idea of being grown up. So she's got these little kitten heels, you know. And I just like this idea of like her hair is longer, it's like flowy, and it's just like she just feels much more free and fun, and like carefree, like just there's careless in many ways. And except for when she's on the court, and that's when it's like tight, not a hair out of place. Like this is when, you know, the grind is happening. And then as we track her throughout the periods of her life, when she's doesn't really know what she's doing, she's like, okay, should I cut my hair? Like, you know, when you're just like, who am I now? I don't have tennis. What am I doing with my life? And she's like, all right, so I'm gonna go for like this like kind of weird mid-length. You know, and we've all kind of had that, like maybe she cut it a little shorter and it looks stupid, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna grow it out, you know. And then as she gets older, it's like a very clear and defined style. We have highlights, we have a bob, and that bob is gonna look like that every day. It's gonna be fresh, it's gonna be blown out, like it's very refined. So I don't know. I think we all just had fun kind of trying to emotionally track where these characters are and present that through these different departments that are so crucial to building these characters. I think without that bit, you know, you once you put the clothes on, you're like, oh, I'm her now, you know.
I want to bring it to you, Mike, because I feel like with Art, there's a much more defined thing. He starts off as very flirty and a little bit unsure, then he becomes focused. And my favorite moment is right after the sign in the tennis match. When he hits that ball back at Patrick, we see basically ice turn into fire. And that is like the biggest emotional shift we see from the character from that moment on. And all of the stuff that comes after that has to be told through tennis. I'm curious, what was in the script? What were you trying to basically say, in addition to those tennis moves that y'all are doing in that final climactic moment? There's a lot of emotion coming out from Art, like more so than you've maybe even seen from him in earlier moments. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that climax. And then I want to come to you, Josh, about how you were on the other side of that, because you essentially popped open all that emotion. So, Mike, yeah.
Um, well, it's interesting because I think that was actually it wasn't planned that moment. It was something that was felt. Sorry, there's no way to articulate that other than, you know, I think there's these strange things that happen. And they're kind of unexplainable, where, you know, you do all of this prep work, you do as much thought that you can with the material that you're given, the conversations that you have with the creatives, the wardrobe that is, you know, built for you. And then at the end of the day, you're placed in that situation and you have to allow the character to kind of come forth and decide for themselves what is appropriate in that situation. And I remember that day very distinctly because we had been shooting that tennis all those tennis sequences going back to that for 2 or 3 weeks. And we did shoot that section of it towards the end of those 2 to 3 weeks. So there was this kind of natural progression leading up to that climactic moment that you're talking about. And that particular moment, it just felt as if that this thing was coming out of me. And it felt like Art was taking over, is the truth of the matter. And it's one of those, you know, unexplainable events where, like I said, you do this work, you do as much prep and thought as possible, and then you let these things kind of take over and let them go. And that felt also correct in the sense for Art, the character, as well, with this person that does work so terribly hard in terms of making the right choices and stepping in the right place and doing the right thing in order to get to those places. And here he is in this situation where truly the game that he is playing, if you were to look at his career, it really doesn't matter. However, in this moment, you know, because of the dramaticness of the story that we are telling, it's the most important thing. And in this moment as well, he is letting go of all of that, which I think is the thing that both Art and Tashi are trying to get out of him. As not just a tennis player, but also a person. And it did feel as if I remember just reading the actual tennis sequence itself, and the way that it had come across to me off of the page was, oh, now everybody is falling back in love with not just each other, but the game and why they are doing it in the first place. And so that release of that tension that Art allows himself kind of allows everybody to let go of it all and just and let go. I'm not being very articulate, unfortunately, with this, but I think it was just one of these things that naturally that tension and buildup is kind of placed into Art's hands. And he has the decision as to how he's going to let both Tachi and Patrick kind of feel about it. And the choice that he makes is to actually kind of come into himself and let go of all of that and choose to engage with it.
No, I mean, that's completely well said. We only have a couple minutes left, but I really want to ask you very quickly, Josh, was that a moment of antagonism, or was that a moment of calling in when he gave him that sign? Because that is the one thing I'll never understand, is why Patrick needed to show him that in that moment, because it really does set everything off.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think. Well, I think it all kind of ties in together. First of all, Tashi. Yeah. First of all, the night before, Tashi is asking me to lose the game and let Art win, and that to me is like the worst sin of all. Like I could never. That would be total. That would be a total deception on my friend. On the other hand, I'm like, okay, well, we've had this thing. I want him to win, but I want him to win for real. And I know Art back to front. Like I know the inner workings of him. I know he's competitive. He's lost that competitiveness because he's lost his love for his sport, for his outlet. And so the one trick I have to to entice him back into his passion is jealousy and anger. And so I think that's why he does it. And then I think what's really interesting, what Mike's alluding to, is that it's like then something else takes over. And I agree with Mike that actually on the page and also on the day, it's like it's not just the two of them playing, the three of them are playing in that moment. And the way Luca has edited and shot the film, and the way we kind of cut back to Tashi looking and like following, and the two of us going back and forth, and the three of us playing, and into that climatic
Yes.
moment. Him, I think that is all about them, the three of them, finding that passion and finding that love. And just one final thing on that, which is that I live in a very small village of I don't want to be rude, but elderly folk. And when I came back from our press tour, where the three of us went around the world, I came back to my small, quiet village in England and in the countryside. And some neighbors of mine had just seen the film and they invited me over and they were like, "Who won?" Like, and it was like, I mean, they loved the movie. They were like, "We absolutely love this movie, but please, for the love of God, who won?" And I was like, "They all won." And I was like, "They all won. They found their love for each other. They've all been brought back together." And then they were like, yeah, cool. Who won?" I'm still trying to figure that out, but that's also part of it.
The final moment when you cheer, it's cheering because she knows that she's got Art back, because she has both of them back. Like, what is she cheering for? Or is she really cheering for the fact that she has been the mastermind? Because I feel like Taylor Swift's Mastermind could be playing under that moment just as easily as that incredible score. That's just my take. I've watched it now 6 times. I'm just standing by that take.
Do you know what? I don't know. I don't entirely know. I think it's such a like, I think for me at least, it's when she loses, in my opinion, her first love, which is tennis. There is a big gaping hole in her heart, right? I think she doesn't really know who she is. She's never taken the time to acknowledge that. She's never taken the time to grieve that. And so she just pivots, she moves on, she's like, I'm going to put all of my eggs in this basket, and they're going to do everything I can't. Right. And it stems from love, because I do think they all love each other. And I do think that she loves her husband. But I think there is a level of like vicariously living through his success and through him. And when, again, he's presented with this opportunity of like, I don't want to do this anymore. Now she's forced to deal with, okay, well, now I've lost the true love of my life of tennis twice. And I'm really going to have to deal with this. And I really don't want to, because I think, Patrick says it best, like, who is he to you if he's not doing this? And I don't think she's ever really wanted to confront those problems. And ultimately, I feel like she hasn't experienced whatever that fire was when the thing that makes, I think, Art love her in the beginning, which is like this guttural scream of like, come on, like this primal thing. And I experienced it. I went to go watch the girls play at Pepperdine. And when I tell you they scream like from this deep place, like it's like a primal thing. Because when I saw it read in the script, I was like, okay, like they go, oh, but they don't scream. No. It's like a real deep thing. And it's not, it just comes out of them. I think it's just like this passionate whatever. And and I think whatever that feeling is of like being in the zone or being completely like entranced with this thing, and you just love it. And it's just like electrifying. And that was just,
Dare I say euphoria? Dare I say
right,
euphoria?
dare I say, that she has. And I think that also bled into all of their original connection and what started them having this, love for each other in the first place. I think sparks from whatever that passion is. And ultimately, they've all lost it in their own way. And I think this spark, and that's why she says, come on, the same way she did when she was younger. It's like the first time that spark is back, right? Like, I don't know where it's coming from. I don't even know if it's because she's finally watching a good fucking game of tennis. I don't know if it's like that her husband is finally playing the way he needs to again. And then maybe she has a second. I think it's everything all at once, right? Like, it's everything all at once. It's the fact that this, it's like an incomplete circuit, right? It's like, if it's not touching, it's not gonna spark. And that was like the final piece that just like the spark is back. Like we're all like, we're back in whatever it was when we were kids and we were in that, motel room, like it's back. I don't know what the fallout of that is. I don't know what the implications of that is, but I think for her, it's just like a primal, like reaction entirely to like, we're back, as I feel like what that stems from. And it brings her joy, and it whatever is, so that's what I think that is. Again, I don't know what that means for their futures. I don't know who wins, but I know that it feels good for her in the moment.
Well, it was very good to watch. $95 million at the box office, certified fresh on the tomato meter. People are still raving about it. And I just cannot thank the three of you enough for letting me have that beautiful moment with all of you. Thank you for being here, and thank all of you for watching.
Thank you for always giving us great interviews.
Yeah.